What do you mean you only watched 6 movies this month?
Yeah, I have a life again, and I only have time to watch movies in my film class. Don't worry, this will still be a fun video though, and a lot shorter. So you'll probably like that because then that's less time for you to listen to me yap about movies. In fact, why are you still here? Go do something productive, I guess. You're still here? Okay, really? I guess here is what I watched September 2024. I started off the month with Twisters, and I can't remember the last time I watched a movie 3 times within 6 weeks, but Twisters was surprisingly one of them. For whatever reason, I'm just drawn back to this movie every time, and how sincere it is as a blockbuster. Look, I've talked about this movie 2 times before, so you can hear my thoughts on my past 2 videos, so I won't get into it here, but I love this movie a lot, and it's slowly becoming one of my favorites of the year. I then watched La Desire. Look, the best way I can think about this movie is Pedro Almodovar's Jackie Brown, as it was to Tarantino. What I mean by that is that it was probably the least in terms of his style, and he is trying to prove more and more that he's a mature filmmaker without so much abstraction, so much in-your-face set design and costume design, and a more laid-back story focused on relationship and drama rather than spectacle and fantasy like Matador was. It is because of this that I feel the film is the most underwhelming thus far in Almodovar's filmography. He's definitely more self-reflective in this film than before, including elements of his own life and infusing him with our protagonist Pablo, who's literally a troubled writer and director. Experiences like writing petty letters just for your desire of love is something Almodovar has experienced in the past and something explored in this film as well, which this part of the movie was fun and interesting. Antonio Banderas is extremely good in this film as a stalker killer who has a desire of love and affection but is unsure of his sexuality, and he puts on facades throughout the film, further heightening the unsureness. But his performance is probably the most captivating part of this film. Carmen Moore is also a strong point in the film. However, her family history was something I could not get behind. A character inspired by Almodovar's own brother, Tina is someone who is forced to have a sex change after her own father encouraged it when they had an affair. This melodramatic storyline is nowhere else in the film, comes out of nowhere, and therefore I could not really get behind it. Tina's desire in the film is also her nostalgia for the past. And I have no clue how one could be nostalgic of a past where you're having an affair with your own father. The film did not explore that in any interesting way and didn't really justify itself. I think if the film was a little bit more energetic and more sensationalized, this reveal would have been better told. But because this movie's underwhelming, I am just not on board with this. And that's kind of what I'll just call La Desire. It's very underwhelming, and I thought it was the most forgettable movie I've watched this month. I then watched Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. Almodovar's attempt at a horror rom-com, as crazy as this sounds, works very well. I mean, again, Banderas is the highlight here, as a stalker who stalks and kidnaps an actress with the hopes that she will fall in love with him. And as crazy as it sounds, his performance was very entertaining throughout and was the best part about it. Now, the argument for this film being a horror movie or a rom-com is something people have debated. The film is more of a horror story in my eyes, though. But by the end, I do feel the love is real between Ricky and Marina, even if it is problematic. Something Almodovar does so well in Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down is his commitment to both the romantic tones as well as the horror tones depicted in the film. A less skilled approach would blend the horror and the sweet romance to mix results. The most recent example was the inclusion of a romance story that feels awkward and stilted in the most recent Halloween franchise movie, Halloween Ends. It did not seem to commit to one or the other the way Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down does. In this film, the horror is truly horrifying. The abduction scene is extremely disturbing and tough to watch. And in terms of filmmaking, the way Almodovar plays with lighting in the scene especially heightens the fear. The horror is committed to. And throughout the film, we are reminded how this abduction is really disturbing and not some sweet love story. This is what makes the film ending a surprise. I was not expecting it to turn into some type of romance film, but it does work because of the careful attention to its characters and the gradual turn of tones. The slow reveal of Ricky's backstory is not only smart, but it's also sweet the way it's told through Matt. Even though he's not a normal person, It is presented in a way that gives him some sympathy as a character and humanizes him in some capacity. It does not make his actions in the film justified, but little bit of sympathy during the map scene was a turning point in the film becoming a love story. Even though the film does turn out to be a love story with Ricky and Marina driving off at the end, the horror is so great in the beginning that once the film ended, I snapped out of my daze and did not know what to think about Ricky and Marina's relationship. The pure desire of Ricky leading to him abducting and abusing Marina into loving him is quite horrifying. It is presented as a sweet moment in the end with them in the car, but looking back on it, it's disturbing. And it's a disturbing representation of Stockholm Syndrome that worked. In the end, I was conflicted about this love story. If it is a love story, what message does it send about love and relationships? Because of how well the horror works at the beginning of the film, it retroactively makes me look at the sweetly presented ending not one out of love but also of horror. I then watched High Heels, a film purely based on melodrama. This worked where Law of Desire doesn't. Almodovar loves his melodramatic elements, however, he is not fully committed to it more than in High Heels. The performances are all incredible, all extracting the maximum amount of emotion in each scene. I think the film works where Law of Desire doesn't because the entire film is committed to being melodramatic. The scene mentioned above is like every scene in the film, actors playing up emotion, the music drawing out emotion, and the camera using tricks to hint at small, mundane details like a chair or earrings to bring out its sentimental meaning. The ending is also super creative, showing us the true desire of the mother played by Marisa Paredes. It brings out a sentimental detail that the film has been building to the entire time and connects it back to the themes of maternity, what it means to be a strong mother, and the regret one has when prioritizing one's career over family. Here, Almodovar seems to hint at the fact that women can do both, have a strong career while also being a strong mother. However, our world has looked down upon it for so long that it can have negative consequences on said family. But this film is also just fun too. Not only is it an emotional ride, but the sense of humor in this thing really has a new fun layer to it. This is an overall very emotional melodrama that sometimes has tonality issues that clash. But for the most part, it balances out well to create a pretty fun and wonderful experience. I then watched 10 Things I Hate About You. I love this movie a lot. I think it is literally the perfect rom-com, probably my favorite rom-com in my eyes. The characters all fit into their archetypal roles very well. While this may be a critique, it works in this film. The strong, rebellious sister hating all forms of patriarchy, the cocky and full of himself lead played by Heath Ledger that seems tough on the surface, the weak and nerdy Joseph Gordon-Levitt chasing after a popular girl out of his league. I mean, all of this is very standard stuff. However, where this film can be seen as by the numbers, I see it as revolutionary. Many people forget sometimes that leaning into one's archetypal role is what makes a character so memorable if done right. Most characters have a moment or moments where they break out of their archetypal role, making it more satisfying while staying entertaining and not being detrimental to the film's goal of just being a fun rom-com. Julia Stiles has moments where she is emotional, caring, and breaks out of her tough exterior. And those moments are more satisfying because of how well they set up her archetypal role in the first place. But these moments are not as satisfying if you don't lean into them in the first place, something that the film does very well. That switch is subversion, and that's what makes 10 Things I Hate About You such a wonderful experience. I then finally watched Live Flesh. Almodovar comes out swinging in this very politically charged film. I think where he shines most as a director is creating films detailing Spain's political divisions, especially being ruled by a dictator, Francisco Franco, for so long. This film opens with a reminder of Franco in power, looming over the birth of Victor, played by Alberto Robel. This birth scene of Victor brings new life into Spain, literally as it signals the beginning of the end of Franco's regime. The camera during this opening sequence is magnetic, showcasing Almodovar's power of showcasing many emotions, character dynamics, and foreshadowing clearly without words, rather with camera techniques. As the film goes on, it expertly crafts a gray zone in each character. Redemption for some, flawed for others. The fun of this film is seeing how each character evolves and sinks into their character arc. Each character takes the exact amount of time on screen to showcase these changes, and it really makes for such a lively experience. That also goes to show how strong the edit of this film is. Really going all in on these characters and showcasing the gradual changes as Spain changes around them. Their divisions soften and harden as the film goes on. I got sucked into this film based on its characters, its fluid camera work, and the ever changing arcs of these characters. It is really such a well crafted work that perfectly captures the change in Spain through a handful of incredibly complex characters and the gray zone they all operate in. Whew. And that is what I watched this month. A light month on movie watching, and you're still here. It's over. The video's over. Go home.